Okay, well, welcome everybody. Thank you for making the time this evening. My name is Marty Leonard. I'm an assistant professor of music at Schreiner University, and I want to welcome you to the workshop, or the kind of information meeting in the Texas Music Office about Kerrville becoming a music-friendly community through the Texas Music Office. So today is going to be informative, hopefully. You'll learn something about their office, about what we as a community can do to grow through this initiative. And without anything else, I want to introduce you to our speaker today, Mr. Brendon Anthony.
Thanks, sir.
Thank you.
Well, thanks all for being here. This is a really exciting thing. I love coming to communities and talking face-to-face with people who work in the business or are interested in it. Nominally, our office is supposed to do that. We're supposed to be out meeting folks who work in the industry and figuring out new ways to support them, to be supportive of the projects that they run in individual towns and communities. I always like to start by asking if anyone has any prior knowledge of the Texas Music Office. Have you guys heard of that before? This is a good average, I will tell you. It's an amazing thing that Texas has. The Texas government has an office like mine, and I'll tell you why. For 30 years, Texas has made a commitment to understanding the industry, the Texas music industry, and advocating for it and supporting it. It was created and moved into the governor's office by Clements and then Governor Richards. So this is a long-standing state agency. I was appointed in 2015 by incoming Governor Abbott. I've been there for one term now with him, and we've seen some pretty great progress and growth in the office in that time. For many years, the office did some incredible work in creating a database that we spoke about that provided information for industry professionals, anything under the sun in the state. You could find each other, you could connect with each other. People from out of state could use that database to connect with one another. Incredible resource. Until the advent of the ubiquitous search engine that made it a lot easier for people to find information about any business under the sun. And then the book that was published for many years was sort of scrapped by the Perry administration because it encompassed massive amounts of paper, right? Just from a practical perspective, it was no longer something they could do. So the database still exists, but since 2015, we decided to take the music office in some new directions, which is why I'm standing with you today. Just to give you a little bit of background about myself, I'm not a bureaucrat, well, at least I wasn't. The formative years of my young adulthood were spent touring with Texas country artists, some of whom you've probably heard of. It's not really important, but I made my living from playing 100 to 200 dates a year, recording on records, producing records, writing songs, that kind of thing. Somehow managed to scrape together a degree from A&M during that time, but I did my entire late teens to mid-30s on the road around the country, around the world. So music matters to me. When I retired from that life in 2010, I started with a couple friends, marketing an e-commerce company that was doing millions of dollars in business for artists like Beyonce, Willie Nelson, 40 or 50 other marquee artists. So I've stayed in the industry, and that led right up until my appointment in 2015. And I've chosen to stay in the industry in Texas. I've had options to work elsewhere in places we know. Not in Texas, but it was important for me to put down roots here, and I think you can do that. I think you should be able to do that more easily. I think songwriters should be able to create here and monetize intellectual property here the same way they do in Nashville and New York and Los Angeles, and we're working hard to make that a reality. And I'll dip into that for a second, but Texas is a vibrant music industry economy. We've used economic numbers to pair next to the cultural things that we all know, from Van Cliburn to George Strait to whomever. You know, we could list for hours the internationally known success stories that have come out of Texas. But occasionally we ought to take a step away from that cultural impact that the music industry has and talk about the economic impact and how we're going to change those numbers for the good. We commissioned the very first economic impact study for my office in 2015, the first year I was there. And it highlighted that over 100,000 people, these are updated numbers now in 19, over 100,000 people go to work every single day and make 100% their living from working in the music industry in some way. And they create over $3.6 billion in earnings, and nearly $400 million to the tax base of our state. So if you were to pair that up against any other business, small industry vertical, in a blind taste test, everyone could agree that that is an industry vertical worthy of support, no matter the cultural impact. Then you pair it up with the cultural impact again, and you've got a dynamite thing that Texas does better than just about anybody else. That is one of the main missions of the Texas Music Office, is to create an environment where those businesses can succeed and be advocated for, just like any other small business. We worked to make sure that Music Modernization Act passed this last year, and we've worked to push back on some DOJ things that frankly were terrible for Texas songwriters, so we act as an advocate. But we've also brought in companies like BMI to Texas for the very first time, their first expansion in over 22 years, so that artists and songwriters can start creating relationships that are going to serve them long term from Texas and not having to travel to meet those people in Nashville. So we serve in a business development capacity, but we also want to work with communities to make sure that they can better listen to and understand their industry community at home in some really exciting ways. I'll start here on this first slide. When I came into the office, I did a quick audit of its capabilities, its outreach, how it was talking to people, how it was talking to industry professionals around the state, and how it was translating the success stories of industry pros around the state to the rest of the world. And I found that none of that really existed, right? Not in a modern way that we can all identify with. Industry professionals now communicate with each other and share success stories through social media, just like any other small business. You know, they market themselves in ways that get the most eyeballs, and that's Instagram, Facebook, and Twitter. And we also created a newsletter so that we could be accountable to people monthly about the things we've done with your tax dollars month to month to month. And it's broken down by meetings that I take and trips that we take and people we meet with, so you can understand what we do at the office. So I don't want to hear the question from folks without a good answer that they can go find themselves about what are you guys doing up there, right? So if you don't already subscribe to the newsletter, please do it. If you don't follow these channels, please do it, because we use them to highlight success stories for people around the state every day. We've run into a program I'm really proud of. I got to do both, sorry. Whoop. And we go back up just a little bit. It's erased on me. All right, so essentially we work on a couple key verticals. We work on new business development, where we try to build an industry infrastructure and create jobs. We connect and network industry professionals with each other through our industry database. We operate a license plate grant that we've given one to Kerrville since I've been here, and that is a pretty fantastic program I encourage you all to check out. Essentially pairs us with nonprofits who give instruments and lessons to kids who need them, that can't afford them, that are in some pretty tough situations, and we create music programming in some underserved communities. It's been a fantastic program, but the reason we're here, sitting in this room and talking, is a few years ago, as we were whiteboarding how our agency could become a more impactful one to industry professionals, person to person and community to community, we needed to put together a program that put us in partnership with these towns that were interested in this endeavor. So we want to enhance and support industry communities statewide through the Music Friendly Communities program. Let's see if this will jump. Okay. The Music Friendly Communities program was born just a few years ago, and we decided to, after doing several months of research from programs that were built in Austin, Toronto, Nashville, London, there's a great deal of research on how communities can better serve creative economies at home. And we thought that that was vital for communities in Texas to start doing with our help. So essentially what we try to do is bring tools to communities to let them better listen to and understand their music economy at home. Every community in the state is different and unique. Kerrville is different than Fort Worth, is different than Lindale, San Angelo, Austin, all these other groups that we've started to work with already. We need to provide those cities and those stakeholders within those communities the tools to start listening, first of all, and start actually reacting to the specific needs of the industry community. And we don't want to do this by enforcing a hard and fast set of rules that every community's got to use. This program's got to look exactly like Kerrville needs it to look for itself. We just bring the tools and we bring the support to make that happen. This mantra that I essentially wrote, that I don't expect you guys to read right now, is available on the site, and I'll provide this presentation to anyone who wants it. Essentially what it says is that by creating these systems within each community around the state that's interested in being a partner, we're going to make Texas an industry center. And it's not just going to be Nashville, New York, and Austin. They're going to say Nashville, New York, and Texas. We're going to prove that we are an industry center of connected music industry communities that do exceptional things that don't happen any other place in the country. And with our 8 certified programs that we have now, going to San Angelo in a few days to present theirs, we have a program that literally does not exist anywhere else in the world. That one state has taken the action to build systems community to community and connect them to each other and connect them to a statewide agency that oversees the program has not been done anywhere else. So it's going to be a groundbreaking program and already is. And here we will talk about what it actually means. So we want to create a real system for people to listen to and react to the needs of the industry community, not by what the city thinks they need, but by actually sitting down in rooms and listening to them and responding to them. They also need to better understand what an industry community is by quantifying it, by surveying it, running economic impact studies if that's important to them, but by really taking a solid minute out to listen to them, understanding who lives in their city, who does good work, who have propelled it forward for years, and what they need to continue to succeed. And they need to work with stakeholders within the business community to create impact. So they need to clue people who enjoy music and like music into a network that can actually support those people who are creating it. And then those communities, once they've built that system, can begin to learn from others who are already down the track of creating programs like Fort Worth and Austin and others that have really taken drastic steps to improve their industry communities since being certified. And I can stop anytime to answer questions. It's up to y'all. So our key strategies start with creating a single point of contact within the city that can be that listening post. So we work with the city to make sure that they create within city government by empowering an existing employee already or hiring somebody or a group of people in some cases to be that listening post. That person will help the community to define itself. They'll navigate city policy for industry stakeholders, and they will lead the strategy that begins to create meaningful change for industry stakeholders in this town. The next layer that helps make it easier for them to do their job is to create an advisory board or council. And this can look like any listening post you want to create. Austin and San Antonio, for example, have created city council appointed music commissions. Fort Worth has empowered a group called Here Fort Worth, which is a nonprofit that serves as a networking and community forum type organization. The Fort Worth CVB helps fund their operations, and they serve as a listening post to their music officer. So it can be created in many different ways. It's going to look specific to the community that creates it. We're not looking to create more layers of bureaucracy. What we're trying to do is create a meaningful forum that listens only to that industry community when it's necessary to do so. One of the worst things a group of small business owners can do, as many of us know, is to get so behind the 8 ball of a problem that you have to show up to city council with pitchforks at the last moment. And it creates misunderstandings and friction that simply don't need to exist if there's been a long-running dialogue leading up to a decision that a city council or mayor's office or economic development council makes. I've seen this time and time again when I was not a stakeholder. In Austin, where I've lived for 20 years, things would get so bad between neighborhood organizations and music venues that were staples of a particular part of town, and they simply would not sit down and discuss it with one another until it got so bad that you almost had to shut everything down and reapproach the whole thing. The Austin Music Commission has made that interaction much easier, and they've facilitated conversations between neighborhood groups and industry, venue owners in places like the Red River District, and they've made life much easier, and they've created pilot programs that allow those venues to go and operate extended hours when people agree that it's necessary. So while we may create another layer of listening within city government, it's not our goal to create more bureaucracy. It's definitely our goal to create a listening forum where people can come and voice concerns en masse, and that those ideas in a meaningful forum can be translated to the music officer whose job is to communicate those to decision makers within city government. Sorry, a little bit difficult. So this is tough because all of these folks that are working in the industry community that we know work very, very hard, extended hours during the week to make their businesses work, period. It's really difficult to make a living in the music industry no matter where you are, no matter what you do. So this advisory group, the city liaison have to work very hard to create engagement within these groups. They have to create opportunities for this interaction to happen. They've got to spread the message, and more importantly, there has to start being a shift in feeling within the communities that feels more supportive than it did prior. Most of us have been on Facebook forums where large and small communities, a singer-songwriter will destroy another singer-songwriter because they didn't like the set that they did, or they didn't like the venue where they played, or something like that. We're trying to avoid some of that negativity, and we're trying to create a more positive atmosphere within the community that feels more collaborative. So part of this is changing the way that people speak to each other within the industry community. We've seen it play out. Fort Worth has been a great partner for us for the past 2 years after they've been certified, and they've created a much more positive atmosphere in a place that used to be very fragmented and rarely communicated with one another. Now when I go speak at their town halls, it's filled with people that are supporting each other. They may have disagreements with one another, but they speak about these disagreements in respectful ways and respected forums now, which is a much better way to do business. And I never miss the opportunity to point that out. It's an easy thing to do to sit on a forum and throw your ideas out there into the ether. But if you're actually working on a project with people that maybe you've never met before, there's a lot more opportunity for positivity to happen. So essentially what you have to do, and we necessarily made this a difficult process. I was talking to Marty earlier about the resources that are available for me to go out and run programs like this, and it may not surprise you to know that the Texas Music Office is 3 people. All of us work extremely hard to do the things that we do. When we created this program, we had a meeting with our head of economic development and each other, and we sat down and said, can we really do this? Can we really open up a statewide program that is asking cities to invest in itself in a brand new way and oversee this program with the 3 of us? And there was some consternation about it. We're asking to be a statewide agency with very limited resources. But we thought it was important enough. We thought creating a program like this was important enough to move forward with. But what we decided at that point was we need to put a lot of the onus on the communities to do a lot of this work themselves. And I've been in rooms where it's been apparent that it wasn't the right time, and that's okay. It is an important program. The groups that have been certified so far through the empowerment the city's given them have accomplished some pretty amazing things already. But we made the program a difficult one to become certified to join for a couple of reasons. We want the right partners who invested in this with us, and we didn't think it was a good use of our time to drive around the state handing out certificates because people were excited about a concept. And I don't mean to sound negative about that myself. The Film Commission right now has 150 film-friendly communities around the state, and they do amazing work, but what they ask communities to do is frankly different than what we're asking communities to do. So we've had a lot of interest in this program because some communities have been certified film-friendly, and now they think it's time to take the step of music. What film-friendly essentially asks communities to do is to catalog a list of locations and contacts, and then they're done. And that's something they've got to keep current and active, and that's a great thing for cities to have a film project come shoot in their town. We're asking cities to reapproach how they listen to an industry community for the time going forward. This is a much bigger type ask of a city. So essentially we ask you to come to this workshop, host a workshop where I'll come and talk, and then begin taking those steps of hiring that single point of contact, defining the advisory group, and to register legally with the Texas Music Office through a signed memoranda of understanding that the city signs with us, saying that at different points of the year they're going to sample their industry community and report it to us so we can keep our database a little bit more squared away, right? You and I were talking about this a moment ago. He went on and he owns several music businesses and he's not listed in our database. He was for quite a while, but not any longer, and that was an oversight on our part. But imagine how difficult it is for us in Austin with the interns we have who we train up and then they leave, you know how it goes. But there are over 20,000 listings in this database. One thing I noticed when I came in is that our database was operating at about a 70% accuracy rate, which is frankly unacceptable to me. After sampling and sampling and sampling, we've got it up over 90 to 92%. We try to keep it higher than that, but it's very difficult. It's my vision, and it's already working in these other communities, that they do that work and they share that data with us. That data is so vitally important to what we do. It helps us tell an accurate story about what the music industry economy is as a whole. It allows us to work with the kind of support we have from the head of economic development, the governor himself, his staff. If we're not telling an accurate story about our constituency, we are failing as an agency. But I do think it's time to ask for help from communities too. It's going to allow them to do a better job of working for what has been for a long time an underrepresented creative class in their town, and we'll have a much better handle on what's actually happening within the state. So we'll be doing a better job, communities will be too, and we'll be doing it together. And then when it comes to engaging, we show back up. We come back to town halls. We help work on strategy with these communities that will help them affect meaningful change for people that live and work in their community. Not everyone has the right answers at first. The interest dies down, and people need partnership. People need prodding. They need to see that there's a bigger vision and a bigger picture to this. They need to be connected to counterparts who are doing programs and working through the same sort of challenges, and we serve that role to connect. We stay in contact, and we continue to help these cities engage with our support. These programs take months to build out, and I try to be very upfront with folks who call and express interest in the program. What we're doing is asking cities to rethink the way that they look at an industry community that they've never taken the time, in many cases, to really understand. They appreciate it. There's unnecessary friction, and there's a lack of support that I think exists. And we're helping create a program right now that will help fix those problems long term. But every program looks different. Every community, like I said, is unique and different. Fort Worth decided, for example, that they wanted to make it easier for their local artists to tour, so they provided them gas cards that made it easier on their margins because they weren't paying for gas to tour out of Fort Worth. It's a very impactful thing. I would not have come up with that. I would not have suggested that to a community like Fort Worth. That's what they decided because that's what they heard from their community. Conroe decided that their first act was to take about a 48-page city code that made it very difficult and prohibitive sometimes to create live music events within city limits, and they've shaved that down to 2 pages, which is a lot easier to navigate, right? But so that's what I'm talking about. I didn't tell them to do that. That wasn't an idea I came up with for them. They got together and listened to people that were important to them in their industry community, and they made change that mattered for those folks. It's practical change. I could go on. Lindale decided, with our help and mostly on their own, to create a wonderful partnership with Tyler Junior College that has put together a recording program that never really would have existed in a town like that. And they built a music campus with the help of some private individuals there that, for a town like Lindale, with all due respect, they should not have that resource. But they decided to make music a priority. They did it partially with our help, mostly without. But it did take the committee that got certification done to come up with those asks, right? They would not have been in the same room together. The city manager, these private individuals, the musicians, the people in the venues, they would not have gotten in the same room together without the certification process that they went through. Austin has been hard at work for a long time on building some of these things. It's been very interesting to watch over the years this proliferation of nonprofit support for the music industry in a town like that. There are over 141 music-related nonprofits in Austin. Now, it's up for debate how impactful all of those things are, but in a place like Austin, where you can have health care if you live within 25 miles of city center, you can get treatment and psychiatric assistance through SIMS if you need it, free continuing music education in practical things that help people market their business, understand publishing, these things through Austin Music Foundation, and even patronage from groups like Black Fred. Coupled with an Austin Music Commission, an Austin Music Economic Development Office, vocal support from the mayor and his staff. I mean, that's a program that is aspirational to cities around the country. And I don't come into rooms like this, please trust me, and say you need to do what Austin's done. But they're good people to connect with. When it comes time to finding ideas that may or may not work for a place like Kerrville. Those are the kind of communications you can have via a network like this, I think. So we're very excited to be working with Kerrville. I think there's a tremendous amount of talent here. There's a tremendous amount of live music events that are vital and historic. One's absolutely worth protecting and seeing exist with minimal friction for a long time. And you've got an amazing educational institution right in your own backyard that's actually going and doing the work of teaching kids how to understand how to be a music industry professional. If they want to play trombone and understand how, we were talking about this a minute ago, how the rest of the business works, so they give themselves a better shot at creating a niche for themselves when they get out of school, I applaud that. I think that's amazing. So there are some things that are going on in your town right now that, with more organization built around it, I can only see succeeding in greater fashion. And we want to help that process. And we want to help you through certification if that's important to the group that's come together today to hear about it. I do want this to be more impactful to you guys. And I understand that there are probably a ton of questions. So if you're not comfortable discussing them in open forum and you want to reach out to me, I'm very easy to find. So I would love to chat with all of you after, or chat with you all offline, whatever you think. Cities, when they get involved in validating and showing support for an industry community like this, I won't beat around the bush. That makes a city look really, really good. We've not yet, whether they were involved from day one or not, had a mayor not show up to receive the certification from the office, from the community. Right? I mean, there are just intrinsic things that are valuable to a city showing this kind of support. Now you have to take the steps off the starting line and do a lot of work to create the programs that I've listed off in these other communities. But it's a great look for a city. And it's a really good way for a city to continue to evolve in its branding for itself, better understanding industry verticals that bring people into your town, and better being able to speak about them and market them. That's a huge win. So while we ask a lot of cities to help certify and get to be partners in this program, forward-thinking city leaders understand this pretty quickly. You do have to do the work to make sure that these programs exist in a way that are actually benefiting people, but it's definitely a win-win for both sides in the equation. We try to prove that up. We're not hopefully coming in and making an ask that's so insurmountable for a city that they look like they aren't trying if it doesn't happen, but it is a huge win-win for the city. It's a great look. We honestly think that you can improve the economic impact that you're already seeing with an intentional approach like this from the city side. And that's what we hope to see facilitate itself. That's what we hope to facilitate in a place like this. I apologize. That's actually the program in a nutshell. We really do encourage you just nominally to follow the office, kind of learn more about it, and to share with us any thoughts and concerns, frankly, you have about the job we're doing, or the effectiveness of programs like this after you do some research. I'm learning on the job every single day, and I'm doing it by coming into rooms like this. Like I said, I would never dream of coming into a city and telling folks within a community how to do something. All we want to do is bring tools and listen and see if we can't build a community, a unique community program that's going to serve people who live in the one that has made the decision to go through the process with us. But with that, it's been an honor to speak with you guys. I love the job I get to do. I hope it serves the constituents that we represent in a better way, and we hope to learn a lot more from you. So thank you for having me. With that, I'll take any questions you have. Yes, ma'am.
I was just going to ask you, and maybe I missed it. Do you actually consult with the city or the people? I mean, do you hang around or come back and like give them advice or feedback in any way, or do you just leave it all for them?
No, we stay pretty involved with folks as they go through the process. And I'll typically talk to many people who have different ideas about it or going to be able to affect the process in different ways, from economic development officers to people from mayor's office, Office of Cultural Affairs,
So you've got the state resources behind you, basically.
Absolutely. You know, and unfortunately, one thing we don't do is bring a checkbook. We fight for, I wish I was, so we fight for every dollar we have to operate, right? And we do that every session.
So what is your budget?
My budget's salary only.
Oh.
And so we beg for, like I came down here today in a rental car because they won't let me drive my own car out of Austin, but we have to tap into an economic development travel budget to do that. That's not something that manifests from the music office budget in any way, shape, or form. So, you know, I would love to travel around Texas with a magic wand, creating these programs overnight with funding behind them. And that's why this is sort of a big ask. And I completely understand that. It's one that I know will pay off. That's why I don't feel uncomfortable making it. But any city resources that go towards empowering that city liaison, creating these networking opportunities, partnering with the events that already exist or helping to create new ones, that has to be found within a city budget in some way, shape, or form. So that's why this is, it's a big ask, and I completely understand it.
Have any of the cities that started the process chose not to complete it? You don't have to name them or anything. And were the reasons other than the finances, not being able to get the funding, they just chose or didn't
Absolutely.
come together? Yeah.
Absolutely. What's so interesting in places like Dallas and Houston, and I'm not singling them that out other than to answer your question pretty accurately, there are so many levers in places like that that have to be pulled at the exact same time to make a program like that happen. I've gotten very close in Dallas, and all the ships have lined up, and then they elect a different mayor who puts everything on hold. And it's just time to reevaluate what the city's going to do. We're going to approach everything in a different way. It's all fine. And I frankly had the same in Houston. We were getting very close and Hurricane Harvey happened. And we're not spending money on that stuff right now. It's predictable. But I have had communities that have taken a look, have done a workshop, and we've gotten on the call afterwards, and they said, it can't happen for us right now. It's just too big of an ask. And that's totally understandable. I do think that's the reason we have 8 instead of 28 communities right now. But again, we said we wanted communities that were able to do it and able to have a good program. I think you get one chance to build the right one the right way. So being impatient about that, it's not going to serve anybody well, least of all us. If we're asking cities to do programs that are failing, that's bad news for everybody. So, yes.
I have 2 questions. One is, of course, the Kerrville Folk Festival is located 9 miles out of town, so technically it's not in the city. But I'm assuming there is like, for example, Texas Commission on the Arts has a program that is geographically bound. And so my question is are there any constraints in that regard from your perspective? Are there geographic boundaries? There's the Hill Country Arts Foundation in Ingram. There's, and then Janice was saying, well, we've got all kinds of things going on in Comfort. And, so, I mean, it depends on how big you want to call it community. So can you address that a little bit?
Sure, it's something I've really struggled with, to be really honest with you, because we've been approached by folks who said, I can do our county. Our county is how we want to focus on this. And essentially my answer to that is, we built a community that needs to be legally understood between my office and an entity that is a government in some way. Having county commissioners sign that doesn't make sense for the program. Having the city council sign it in agreement with our office means that we've got an agreement between a city government and my office, and then that's sort of the way the program took shape initially. I'm still waiting to hear the right answer about how to do a multi-community area. For example, we've been approached by Baytown and Kemah and one other group, and they've got a CVB that represents all of them.
Right.
They market themselves together. I can start to understand how that program looks, but I haven't taken it down the road where we have the lawyers look at the language yet. I'm more than willing to figure that out. I just haven't heard the right answer yet. There's the High Ground Economic Development Group in West Texas that represents some smaller towns in addition to Lubbock and these others, and they would be perfect for it. I just have not heard the through line yet. I'm absolutely willing to figure it out. In fact, it'd be more expedient for some of these towns that are grouped together in that way for us to pick off a few at once if they were all interested at the same time. That would be great. I just don't know exactly how it works right now. But someone's going to bring me the answer.
Yeah.
Or I'll dream it up or something. I don't know, but it will likely become apparent. I think it'd probably be a question of, is there an overarching body that oversees programs in those areas? So I'm starting to understand that CVB role in the East Texas thing I mentioned. I could get behind that, I think.
And then the other question that I have is, do you have a template on a MOU, or how does what does the MOU look like?
Sure. Yeah, I can send that to anyone who's interested. It's absolutely public. It essentially says a couple times a year enter dates, you'll compile and share data with us. And now we're going to work together on that. And, you know, lawyers can't say it that simply, though. It's a couple pages, right? We haven't had any major red line concerns between attorneys at city level or ours. They're all surmounted in a day or so. So it's a pretty simple doc, and it essentially says we're going to share information and be in partnership on this one specific program for this one specific reason. But I can share that with anyone who wants to take a look. Happily. So, yes.
So we're at bullet point number 1, correct?
Yes.
About how long does it take to get to the last one?
I can take six months to a year.
Okay.
But you know, Fort Worth, I brought them up a couple times. They understood the program from day one. They rallied a bunch of support before the workshop happened. They already nominated the person who was in city government. They had some funds laying around. They just deployed them. They found the nonprofit group, and about 3 months later, they were doing their ceremony thing. It's just a question of how comfortably you can make things line up. Some just take longer, and there's like I said a moment ago, there's no pressure to get it done more quickly. I think the pressure should be on all of us to get a great program built, and whatever time that takes is what we ought to invest in. MOU takes no time on our side. Advisor groups tougher for cities because cities are creating more bureaucracy, mostly for good reasons. Finding that nonprofit, if you want to empower them, or creating that advisory board is a little tougher. I've heard mention of a committee that's sort of sat down a few times to talk about this program. That could be a great place to start. And we're extremely flexible about what shape that takes. You understand your community and your stakeholders far better than I will. So there won't be any pushback from me about, you know, this is our group, this is what we're gonna do. That's great if it's going to work for you. And then sometimes, you know, during fiscal cycles and that sort of thing, it's just simply not possible to empower a new city employee at that time. That can take a few months, that kind of thing. There's little factors at play there. Yes, ma'am?
You said you have 8 communities that you're working with. Are any of them as small as we are?
Yes, Lindale is tiny. And Lindale had to make a pretty good case to me because while I'd driven through there 100 times, I'd never spent the time and research it took to fully understand what they were going to invest in and what they did invest in and the level of support from the city. But I definitely kept an open mind, and after one visit out there, it was apparent to me that was a microcosm for this program. So yes, they're smaller, but they're a really good example of a city that has taken an intentional focus to building something that was really just not there. They're going to be unique, though, I think. And it's not about their size. It's just about the way they're structured and what they've invested in. So no, Kerrville wouldn't be the smallest by a site. But I don't know if more towns that size will want to come along. I find them pretty interesting, frankly. Well, cool. Well, look, I'm really honored that you have me here today. Like I said, I'm easy to find. TexasMusicOffice.com is a place I'd love for you all to visit and give some, you know, constructive criticism or feedback on.
Is all that on there?
Yes. All of these steps are listed on that site too. And if you want any follow-up or anything, you've got my card too. Please feel free to reach out. Mark and Steve, who've worked tirelessly at the office for 25 years combined, are there to answer any questions too, and they're tireless advocates for what we do and what the office does as well. So great people to connect with, and please don't hesitate to do so. But thanks for being here. I sincerely appreciate it, and thanks for helping host.